All right, so today we're going to be diving into something kind of vital, I guess you could say. It's all about keeping those arteries healthy. So we've got three sources we're going to be unpacking today. One, we've got just general advice on artery health. We've got a deep dive from the British Heart Foundation. And then we've got a source that's focused specifically on foods. And our kind of mission here is to give you some actionable insights and maybe even a few, kind of surprising facts that you can use right away.
You know, it's funny. We only really think about arteries when something goes wrong. They're like the unsung heroes of our bodies, you know?
Yeah, totally. Like a hidden plumbing system, just silently working to keep us going. So before we get into the how-to, can you give us a quick breakdown of what exactly arteries are and why they're so important?
Absolutely. So the simplest way to put it is that arteries are the transport network for your blood. They carry that oxygen-rich blood from the heart to every single cell in your body.
Okay, so pretty important then. I know we're talking about keeping them clear, but what happens when things go wrong? What is like this atherosclerosis that we keep hearing about?
Atherosclerosis is kind of the big villain when it comes to artery health. Imagine a pipe slowly getting clogged with gunk. That's kind of what happens over time with your arteries.
Oh, okay.
And this gunk, it's called plaque. It's made up of things like cholesterol and fat and other substances. As it builds up, it narrows the arteries and restricts that blood flow.
So it's like rush hour traffic for your blood cells.
Exactly.
Not good. And the British Heart Foundation actually calls this a silent killer. That sounds pretty intense. What makes it so dangerous?
Well, the danger is that you might not even know what's happening until it's serious. This blockage can build up over time without any noticeable symptoms, and then suddenly you're facing a potentially life-threatening situation like a heart attack or a stroke.
Okay, you've got my attention now. So it's not just about treating symptoms, it's about being proactive, right? But is this mainly something that, like, older folks should be worried about? I mean, are my arteries probably fine for now?
Well, that's a common misconception. Atherosclerosis can actually start much earlier in life, even in your 20s and 30s. It's not about reaching a certain age, it's about understanding your individual risk factors. The BHF actually recommends that everyone over 40 gets a cardiovascular risk assessment to check their blood pressure and cholesterol and their overall risk.
So knowing your numbers is key. It's not just about age, it's about taking control of your health. What are some of the risk factors we should be aware of?
Well, there are several. Some are more obvious than others. Smoking is a huge one. It directly damages the lining of your arteries and makes them more susceptible to plaque buildup.
Okay, so smoking is out.
Right. High blood pressure is another major contributor. Because it puts constant strain on your arterial walls, it makes them more likely to develop cracks and tears where that plaque can accumulate.
Smoking, high blood pressure, got it.
And then there's high cholesterol. Especially high levels of LDL cholesterol, often referred to as the bad cholesterol.
Yeah.
Think of LDL cholesterol as kind of like sticky, greasy particles that contribute to that plaque buildup.
Got it.
Diabetes is another risk factor because high blood sugar levels can damage your blood vessels over time, making them more vulnerable to atherosclerosis.
Okay.
And finally, family history plays a role. If you have close relatives who have experienced heart disease, your risk might be elevated.
So it sounds like a combo of lifestyle and genetics. But the good news is we have some control over at least some of those things, right?
Speaking of control, let's get to the practical stuff. Our artery health source lists a bunch of lifestyle changes that can make a difference. Things like quitting smoking, limiting alcohol, managing stress, getting enough sleep. But if we had to pick just a couple to really focus on, what would you say are the most impactful for keeping those arteries clear? Diet and exercise, hands down. They're the power couple when it comes to artery health. They work together to not only prevent, but also potentially slow down that progression of atherosclerosis.
Okay, let's dive into those. First up, diet. What should we be eating?
This is where things get interesting. Our Unclogging Arteries source highlights some real winners in the food department. Fatty fish, like salmon and mackerel, they're packed with omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay, so good for the brain and the blood vessels.
Exactly. They have powerful anti-inflammatory effects,
Okay.
which can help reduce that inflammation that contributes to the plaque buildup. And they can also help to lower triglycerides, which are another type of fat found in the blood that can contribute to heart disease.
Okay, so fatty fish is in.
Right.
What else should we be adding to our shopping list?
Cruciferous veggies, like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, they're like little artery superheroes.
I know they're good for me, but how do they actually help my arteries?
Well, first of all, they're packed with fiber, which helps regulate cholesterol levels and promotes healthy digestion. And they're also full of antioxidants, which help protect your cells from damage. But here's what's really interesting. They contain these compounds that activate specific proteins in your body that can actually help prevent blockages.
So they're not just sweeping things clean, they're actually preventing the gunk from sticking in the first place.
Right.
I'm definitely adding those to my grocery list.
Good. And berries are another fantastic choice. They're full of fiber and antioxidants too, but they also contain these compounds called anthocyanins, which have been shown to improve blood vessel function and reduce blood pressure.
So berries are like tiny shields protecting our arteries from damage.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, what else?
And here's a couple that might surprise you. Avocados and bananas.
Avocados, I get, they're full of healthy fats. But bananas, really?
Yep. Avocados are full of fiber, protein, and all those good fats, those monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, which can help to reduce inflammation and improve cholesterol levels. And bananas are high in potassium, which is a mineral that's essential for maintaining healthy blood pressure.
Wow, the potassium connection, I never knew that. But it's not just about adding good stuff, right? There are some things we should be avoiding.
Right. Highly processed foods, trans fats, saturated fats, added sugars, excess sodium, all those things are definitely on the naughty list when it comes to artery health.
Makes sense.
They contribute to inflammation, they raise cholesterol levels, and they increase blood pressure.
Yeah, so basically, a diet that's good for our overall health is good for our arteries too.
Exactly.
Okay, we've talked a lot about food.
Yeah.
What about exercise? What kind of movement do our arteries crave?
Well, artery health suggests aiming for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise each week, or 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic exercise. So think brisk walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, things like that.
Okay, but does it have to be all at once? Like, I'm more of a, short burst throughout the day kind of person.
Oh, that works too. Even breaking it down into 10-minute chunks can make a difference. The key is to find activities you enjoy and make them a regular part of your routine.
Okay, so a mix of delicious food and fun movement. That's a prescription I can get behind.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a second. What if the damage is already done? Can you actually reverse artery damage?
That's the million-dollar question. The BHF explains that while complete reversal might not be possible once atherosclerosis has progressed too far, you can absolutely slow it down and prevent further damage.
That's good to hear.
Right.
Even if we haven't been perfect in the past, we can still take action to protect our arteries going forward.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And to answer that question a bit more, we need to talk about medication.
All right, let's move on to part 2 of this deep dive and explore that.
Welcome back. So we were talking about medication.
Right, because sometimes, lifestyle changes just aren't enough. So can we talk about some of the medications that can, play a role in managing artery health? We often hear about things like statins and aspirin, for heart health. But I have to admit, I don't really know how they work. Is there a simple way to, understand what these medications actually do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like having different tools for different jobs. Let's start with statins. Those are like the cholesterol busters.
Okay.
They basically work by blocking an enzyme in your liver that's responsible for producing cholesterol.
Okay, so less cholesterol production means less cholesterol floating around in our bloodstream. Kind of like turning down the faucet on cholesterol.
Exactly.
And that's important because high levels of LDL, the bad cholesterol, that's a major culprit in plaque buildup.
Right. It's like those tiny scrubbers working to keep the cholesterol levels in check.
Got it. So statins are all about cholesterol management. What about aspirin? I know it's a common over-the-counter medication, but how does that help with artery health?
Aspirin is actually quite interesting. It works by preventing blood clots. Remember we were talking about how that plaque buildup narrows the arteries? Well, if a piece of that plaque ruptures, it can trigger a blood clot to form. And that can totally block the artery.
So it makes those blockages even scarier.
Right.
So aspirin helps to prevent those, sudden blockages.
Exactly. It works by making it harder for the platelets in your blood to stick together and form those clots. It's kind of like adding a slippery coating to the inside of your blood vessels.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So those platelets can't, clump up and cause trouble.
Exactly.
That makes aspirin sound kind of like an insurance policy against those, sudden blockages. Are there other medications that work in a similar way?
There are. There's actually a whole class of drugs called antiplatelet medications, and they all work by interfering with the clotting process in slightly different ways. Aspirin is one of the most common, but Sometimes a doctor might prescribe other antiplatelet medications, especially if someone can't take aspirin or needs a more, targeted approach.
So like a whole toolkit of options depending on the individual's needs. What about, the artery health source mentioned medications for blood pressure? How do those fit into the picture?
Well, high blood pressure, it puts extra stress on your arteries, which makes them more susceptible to damage and plaque buildup. Think of it like a garden hose with too much water pressure. Eventually, it's going to weaken and spring leaks. Blood pressure medications work by relaxing the blood vessels and reducing that force of blood flow, and that lowers blood pressure and takes some of that strain off your arteries.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've got statins for managing cholesterol, we've got aspirin and other antiplatelet drugs for preventing clots, and then we've got blood pressure medications for, managing blood pressure. Sounds like a powerful combination. But do these medications come with any downsides? Are there any, risks or side effects that we should be aware of?
Yeah, that's a really important question. Like any medication, these drugs can have potential side effects. It's really important to discuss those with your doctor to make informed decisions. Statins, for example, can sometimes cause muscle aches, or in rare cases, liver problems. And aspirin, while it's generally safe, it can increase the risk of bleeding, especially in people who already have bleeding disorders or are taking other blood thinning medications.
Okay, so it's not just about popping a pill and calling it a day. It's about careful consideration and, working with your doctor to find the right approach.
Absolutely. It's essential to remember that the goal of these medications is to reduce the risk of future heart problems. They're not a quick fix.
Right.
It's a long-term strategy for protecting your heart health.
So it's about taking that proactive approach to heart health through lifestyle choices and, if necessary, medications. But I am curious, are medications ever a replacement for healthy habits? Can we just take a pill and keep, smoking and eating junk food?
Definitely not. That's a really important point. Medications are crucial in some cases, but relying on them too much can mask the need to, address those underlying lifestyle issues. It's a delicate balance. Medications help manage the situation, but it's the lifestyle changes that really address the root cause.
Yeah, that's a crucial distinction. So it's not about choosing one or the other. It's about that holistic approach that combines, the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. It's a team effort. Medications can be powerful tools, but they work best when combined with that healthy lifestyle.
I love that analogy. It's about taking ownership of our health and working in partnership with our healthcare providers to, achieve the best possible outcome. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about prevention. We touched on the fact that atherosclerosis can start early in life. Does that mean that, we're all doomed to develop heart problems as we age?
Not at all. While atherosclerosis can begin early, we do have a lot of control over how our arteries age. Think of it like this. We all inherit a certain set of genes, but it's our lifestyle choices that can either activate or silence those genes.
So it's not about preventing it entirely, but about slowing down the progression and keeping those arteries as healthy as possible for as long as possible.
Exactly. And the British Heart Foundation really emphasizes this. They say leading a healthy lifestyle, managing those risk factors that we talked about earlier, is absolutely vital for slowing the disease's progression.
Right. Even if we can't totally stop the clock on our arteries, we can certainly make sure it's ticking along smoothly.
Yeah.
We've talked about diet and exercise as, major players in artery health. But what about other lifestyle factors? Does stress play a role?
Stress is a big one. Chronic stress is kind of a sneaky culprit because when we're constantly stressed, our bodies release these hormones like cortisol that can contribute to inflammation and increase our risk of heart disease.
So stress is like this invisible force silently wreaking havoc on our cardiovascular system.
Yeah, pretty much.
What can we do about it?
It's all about finding healthy ways to manage that stress.
Okay.
Things like exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, connecting with loved ones, those are all great stress busters.
Those aren't just good for our arteries, they're good for our souls too.
Yeah.
What about sleep? Does that play a role in artery health?
Sleep is crucial. When we don't get enough sleep, our bodies produce more of that stress hormone cortisol, which, as we talked about, can contribute to inflammation and increase the risk of heart disease.
So getting enough shut-eye isn't just about feeling refreshed, it's about protecting our arteries from damage too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night to give your body a chance to rest and repair.
Sounds like an excuse for an early bedtime to me. What about other habits? We talked about smoking as a major risk factor. What about alcohol? Is like a glass of wine with dinner okay, or should we be avoiding it altogether?
Well, moderation is key. Excessive drinking can raise blood pressure and triglyceride levels. But the Artery Health source did say that moderate alcohol intake might actually have some protective effects. The key word there is moderate.
So a little bit might be okay, but definitely not something to overdo.
Exactly.
Got it. We've covered a lot of ground on the lifestyle front. But what about specific types of exercise? Is there anything that's like particularly beneficial for artery health?
Yeah. Research suggests that aerobic exercise might be especially good for your cardiovascular system.
Aerobic exercise. Remind me what that is again.
Aerobic exercise is any activity that gets your heart rate up and makes you breathe faster.
Okay.
So like brisk walking, running, swimming, cycling, dancing, things like that. Things that get you kind of, huffing and puffing.
Okay, so it's not just about moving, it's about getting our heart pumping.
Right.
What's so special about aerobic exercise for our arteries?
Well, aerobic exercise strengthens your heart muscle, which makes it more efficient at pumping blood throughout your body. And that can help to lower blood pressure and improve blood flow, which reduces the strain on your arteries.
So it's like giving our cardiovascular system a good workout,
Yeah,
making it stronger and more resilient.
exactly.
And you don't have to be a marathon runner to reap those benefits.
Not at all.
Encouraging, so even a brisk walk around the block can make a difference.
Absolutely. The key is to find something you enjoy and make it a regular part of your routine.
Got it. So it's about listening to our bodies and finding a sustainable rhythm that works for us. This is all such fantastic advice, and we've covered so much already, but I know there's still more to unpack.
There is. We've talked about the science, the lifestyle factors, and the medications, but there's another piece of the puzzle. It's understanding those early warning signs so that you can take action before things get too bad. Let's dive into that in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered so much about artery health, from like the basics of how they work to the things we can do to keep them healthy and the meds that can help. But I'm thinking about those early warning signs you mentioned, like if atherosclerosis can start so young, how do we even know if something's wrong?
It's a good question. Like we were saying, atherosclerosis is often called a silent killer. It can develop for years without causing any noticeable symptoms. That's why it's so important to know your risk factors and to get regular checkups, especially as you get older.
Okay, so regular checkups, especially if you have any of those risk factors we talked about. But are there any like red flags, any subtle hints that our arteries might be in trouble?
There can be, but they're often easy to miss or just dismiss.
Okay.
One thing to pay attention to is any unusual fatigue or shortness of breath, especially during physical activity. Like if you suddenly find yourself getting winded doing things that used to be easy, that could be a sign that your heart is working harder to pump blood through those narrowed arteries.
So paying attention to our bodies and noticing any changes in our energy levels.
Right.
What else should we be on the lookout for?
Chest pain or discomfort, especially during exertion, that's a red flag. It's known as angina, and it's a classic symptom of reduced blood flow to the heart muscle. Now, not all chest pain is angina, but it's always worth getting checked out by a doctor, especially if it's new or happens during physical activity.
Angina. I've heard that word before. It's
Yeah.
good to like know what it actually means. Are there any other warning signs that might be, less obvious?
Keep an eye out for any pain, numbness, or weakness in your legs or arms, especially during exercise. That could indicate peripheral artery disease, PAD. It's basically atherosclerosis affecting the arteries in your limbs.
Okay.
And believe it or not, erectile dysfunction can also be an early warning sign of cardiovascular problems.
Really?
Yep. It can be caused by reduced blood flow.
Wow. I never would have thought of that. It just goes to show that, paying attention to every aspect of our health is important. Seemingly unrelated symptoms can be connected. If atherosclerosis can start so early, should we be, talking to young people about this? This isn't really something they talk about in high school health class, is it?
You're right. We often think of heart health as an older person's issue, but the reality is that prevention should start early. The habits we develop in our youth, they have a huge impact on our long-term health. So we need to empower young people with knowledge and tools to make healthy choices.
It's about, changing the mindset from treatment to prevention.
Exactly.
But it's not just about lecturing kids about healthy habits, right? It's about making them appealing and accessible.
You got it. We need to create environments that support healthy choices. Schools, workplaces, communities, they all play a role in shaping our behaviors.
It makes sense. Like if healthy food is easy to get and affordable, if physical activity is encouraged and fun, if those positive choices are just like built into our everyday lives, then healthy habits become the norm.
That's the idea.
It's not about deprivation or restriction. It's about creating a world where healthy living is, well, it's just how we do things.
It's about creating a culture of wellness.
I like that, a culture of wellness. We've covered so much ground today. It's been great. But what's one practical takeaway for our listeners? Something they can do right now to take better care of their arteries?
Make one small positive change today. It could be anything, really. Swap that sugary soda for a glass of water. Choose fruit over a cookie. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Go for a 15-minute walk at lunch. It doesn't have to be a huge change, just one small step in the right direction.
I love that. One small change consistently over time, it can make a big difference. It's not about being perfect, it's about making progress.
Exactly.
One healthy choice at a time.
Every healthy choice is a victory for your arteries and a step towards a longer, healthier life.
What a great way to end things. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into artery health. We hope you feel informed, empowered, and ready to take charge of your heart health.
And until next time, stay curious, stay healthy, and keep those arteries happy.